Friends, the purpose of this video is to explain two techniques of analysis of empirical data in qualitative research. Qualitative methodology is very much in use in social sciences as well as in management areas and organization behavior. Actually, because of subjective nature of interpretation of data, I will talk more about subjectivity in this sentence. Subject. Who is the subject? Researcher is obviously the subject. Some people often question about reliability and validity of findings of qualitative research. And in the past, several people have made attempt to suggest ways of analyzing qualitative data in a manner that can be as close to being reliable and validity as possible. Two of them are grounded theory approach and Gioia methodology. So I focus on these two methodologies, grounded theory and Gioia methodology. I will talk about what they are, then make a comparison between them, and at the end, there is a slide showing merits and demerits of both. So you will get an idea of what these techniques are and how they are applied to analysis of empirical data and what are the outcomes and how are those outcomes reached with the help of empirical data collected through qualitative research. So I'm sharing my slides, and the first slide of this presentation gives the title Qualitative Data Analysis Comparing Grounded Theory Approach with Gioia Methodology. Friends, let me first come to origin and development of these methodologies. Grounded theory approach was developed in 1960s. So a lot of time has elapsed since then, and many discoveries have been made in applications of grounded theory approach in qualitative research. So today I will not be in a position to say exactly what grounded theory is, but I will share the dominant tendency of grounded theory approach as suggested by the founding fathers of grounded theory. And second is Gioia methodology. Gioia methodology emerged in the 2000s as a structured qualitative approach focusing on organization studies and sense-making processes. So it's applied more. It's of a recent origin, and it's applied more in organizational studies. But I will say that the same technique, and I will give one illustration how the same technique can also be applied to research in sociology, psychology, etc. First, about grounded theory. The grounded theory says that research begins with data, but it does not say what data or what is the nature of data. Actually, it takes a position that research begins with data. All data are data, which means qualitative data, quantitative data, reports published by state or different ministries of government, visual data, content analysis of newspapers and magazines or media items. Anything can be data. Now, this data must help you in conceptualization about your problem. What is the nature of the problem? What are its dimensions? and what are the consequences of this, implications of this, and relationships between different determinants of the same phenomenon. Many questions will come to your mind, and you have an early understanding of the problem. This is your concept. Now, for verifying this concept, you may often have to collect more data. But when you collect more data, your conceptualization of the problem may change. And then you require another set of data to corroborate or falsify or do whatever you want with the concepts, or you modify concepts. So like this, in grounded theory approach, uh, we use what is called constant comparison of concepts with data and vice versa. So you are generating data, these data are giving you new concepts, and to verify those concepts, you are collecting more data. More on this a bit later. Now, this technique was developed by Barney Glaser, who was a quantitative sociologist from California, and Anselm Strauss, a qualitative sociologist from Chicago. Now, how are data in such qualitative studies analyzed? That is the question. And they suggested a way that if you use a systematic procedure by creating open, axial, and selective coding or codes, then you can be as near to objective reality as possible. Actually, they studied dying experiences. I will give you some references of grounded theory approach also. And the outcome of open, axial, and selective coding method is selective coding, which is the core category interpreting open and axial codes. I will also explain what are open and axial codes. This selective coding leads to a theory which can be used by academicians as well as state, community organizations, and people. So people's organization, this theory must be of some use to somebody. Usefulness of theory is an important part of grounded theory approach. If you are developing a theory based on empirical data, which is of no use to anyone, then that is not the aim of grounded theory. So these are some references for grounded theory. Those interested in grounded theory must necessarily read Glaser and Strauss's Awareness of Dying, which was published in 1965. Then there are other references. You can see these references. There is a 67 reference of Glaser and Strauss, The Discovery of Grounded Strategy for Qualitative Research, a fundamental book on application of grounded theory. Then there is Strauss and Corbin, Grounded Theory Methodology. This article is available on net. Then there are others. And the latest in the context of India is an article published in Sociological Bulletin in 2016 by a scholar, R. Repriya. So you can go through these references. What happens in grounded theory approach? Unlike in quantitative research, data in itself does not produce a theory. Now, your data consists of narratives. In qualitative research, face-to-face interviews or narratives are of great importance, and these narratives, full sentences, parts of sentences, a crucial part of a sentence, or a word even, they form your open codes. This is the first order of codes. And So you have transcriptions of your interviews, you read them again and again and again, arrive at the most important open quotes. Some computer packages can also help you in identifying quotes, but the traditional way of analyzing qualitative data is that the researcher or a team of researchers reads the transcriptions again and again, repeatedly. Hmm. The From open course, we have some ideas, some concepts regarding process by which certain things create the outcome of the research. Hmm. Uh, these Actually, in the second stage, you have axial coding. Axial codes summarize the key features of the open codes. Okay. Uh, because most of you are more familiar with quantitative methodology, so I may say that axial codes are a kind of factors which summarize the influences of open codes. So from open codes, you go to axial codes. Open codes are raw data, or they are generated on the basis of raw data. These open codes give rise to axial codes, or more abstract concepts in terms of which open codes can be interpreted, explained, linked with each other. And finally, selective coding. So these coding stages help in identifying, relating, and refining categories to build a coherent theory from data. So, ultimate theory uh, uh, from empirical data comes in the form of selective coding. And this selective coding leads to a theoretical explanation which can be used by academicians as well as by social workers or community workers. So, as the diagram on the left hand side shows, you have data collection, but before data collection, again, there may be some theorization, reading of books, literature, journal, talking to people just randomly without any structured way of collecting data, talking to key informants or state machinery or diverse sources of data. From this develop open codes, and from open codes you go to axial codes, and at the end you have selective codes. These are the core categories which help you in developing or in building a general theory in terms of which open codes, axial codes, selective codes, and anything that you want to explain in that research can be explained. So final outcome is the theory. Um, as I used these words earlier, this grounded theory approach uses a method in which we make empirical beginning data from the field of face-to-face interviews or observation or fieldwork, ethnography. Constant comparison method is interactive and interpretive. Interactive means you as a researcher are interacting, you are talking to data. Talk to data. And this requires a very long time. It's not one time activity. You talk to data. These are the words that the founding fathers of grounded theory use. You interact with the data and you interpret data. In the process of interacting or talking to data and interpreting the observed uh, observed things from the field, uh, you develop certain concepts and some questions. New questions, from the new concepts arise new questions. And then you would like to collect more data from different people, from different settings, on different issues. At every stage of going back to field or going back to data, you are reinventing data and you are going to answer a sequentially uh, arrived at research question. So you're at different stages of comparing concepts with data. You do not necessarily have normally you do not have the same research questions. Your research questions have changed, your ideas have changed, and you have gone to field again to answer new sets of questions. And that also means that your sample will have to change. Maybe in the beginning you just talk to villagers. In the second stage, when you have already some understanding of development process in the village, you would like to interact with development departments. You may like to talk to CDOs, BDOs, ADOs. You may like to talk to Gram Panchayat members or Gram Pradhan or secretary or other people or other teachers or journalists, police department. Then again, some idea, you develop new ideas about the problem. You identify new sets of people to be interviewed and like this. So there is a continuous development of ideas and categories. For example, belief about practice of scientific medicine as a concept and categories like full faith, emergency use, complete rejection, ambiguity depends on the conditions of the patient and their financial status. And you keep on collecting data. In grounded theory approach, we do not fix a sample size in the beginning. Sometimes some students ask me, what should be the sample size in my qualitative research? I'm using qualitative methodology. What should be my sample size? Everybody knows that in quantitative studies, Cochrane's formula or some such formula can be used to arrive at sample size. My answer is that in qualitative research, sample size is not important. Maybe a sample of one itself can give you enough data. When you meet the same person in diverse situations at different points of time, your person is one, but it is equivalent to talking to different persons in different situations. You stop collecting data maybe after you have studied 5 people or 50 people or 500 people, when you think that the categories that you have developed on the basis of your data are now fully understood by you. No one else is going to decide when to stop. You will decide. No formula will decide. No mathematical equation will decide. You will decide, okay, now this is the stage when I've understood my concept properly, so I can stop here. This is theoretical sampling. Whom to interview, how many people to interview, that you decide at different stages of data collection and concept generation. So this theory or this approach aims at justice towards voices and perspectives of people. You get voices and perspectives of people, develop new concepts, talk to more people, develop new voices, get new perspectives, again talk to people. This process of comparison between data and concepts goes on. It takes a constructivist position and it recognizes the dependence of outcome on the context in which data are collected, participants, we do not call them subjects, we call them participants, and background and perspectives of the researcher, which cannot be ignored. So all of you as a researcher have certain backgrounds, certain perspectives, which bias your inquiry. Accept them. There is no way of eliminating bias. None of us can eliminate uh, our biases, but we can accept them. We can document them. That My education level is this, my family background, my father's income was this, we are from urban areas or rural areas, or we belong to this ethnic group or that ethnic group. Once we accept that these things matter in our interpretation of our data, then you may say that sufficient objectivity has been achieved. Then what is the role of theory in grounded theory? Theory emerges from data. There is no a priori theory which you are going to test or which you are going to corroborate or falsify on the basis of data. You begin with data, generate theories, from theories again, from your theories at a given stage of development of theory, a need for new sets of data may arise. You collect more data, develop new concepts, again, new new sample, new ideas, new people to be interviewed, or new settings, or new fields. Um, it's possible that you begin from one state of India and you'll end up studying people from other states of India, especially if you are studying rural to urban migration or the process of interstate migrant. As far as this second methodology or Gioia methodology is concerned, it's applied mostly in uh, operations research. I will give some references of Gioia methodology also. And like open coding, axial coding, selective coding, and theory finally. This Gioia methodology also aims at generating first order concepts, themes, emergent mechanisms. It's like a kind of interpretive simultaneous equation model, a term which is used in quantitative methodology to identify relationships between different measurements and factors based on those measurements or constructs or hidden constructs or latent factors. These are, this theory is called Gioia methodology. This approach or this methodology is called Gioia methodology because it was developed by Gioia and it was developed in 2000. Then there are some more papers, some fundamental papers you may like to read. There is a 2013 paper seeking qualitative rigor in inductive research, notes on the Gioia methodology. This was published in Organizational Research Methods. There is another article by Gioia, Corley, and Hamilton. You will certainly benefit from reading of this article. And one more article published in Administrative Science Quarterly. Then you can have references from these articles and read further. For greater, for in-depth understanding of Gioia methodology, you can read further from these references. Now, what it does, your narratives or uh, statements made by your respondents in face-to-face interview, they become your first-order concepts. Yeah? Then come second-order concepts or themes. They describe how researchers identify participants' own world first and then interpret them into broader analytical categories. And then you can say third order, fourth order, fifth order, and finally, when we have understood, I think a group of researchers here also can join together to arrive at second order, third order, fourth order, or you alone can do this. The idea is that there is a structuring of matrices from data to final theorization. But it differs from grounded theory approach in the sense that there is no going back. In grounded theory, once you have developed selective codes or some kind of preliminary theory of your problem, you go back to data. Maybe your selective codes help you in identifying more appropriately whom to interview, how many to interview, in what situations to interview, what kind of questions to be asked, and so on. But here in Gioia methodology, you have interviews, and from interviews, gradually or sequentially or systematically, you move towards second order, third order concepts, and finally, your theory or your themes emerge. This is a diagram from Corley and Gioia in a paper published in 2004. I have mentioned this paper in the reference. So you see, what are the first order concepts? These are verbatim reports from face-to-face interviews. What the participant said. Then come the second order or themes here. Now, some themes may be based on two statements, some on three statements, some on one single statement. Sometimes one single statement can be so powerful that it produces an important theme of second order. And from these themes, develop aggregate dimension. Again, one aggregate dimension may depend on two second order themes or three second order themes or four second order themes. But you see, you start with narratives, and from narratives gradually you move towards identifying aggregate dimensions of the problem. This was a research on identity ambiguity and change in the wake of a corporate spin-off. You will have a different problem and you will have different narratives from which second order and aggregate dimensions of the problem will emerge. So, I thought that for sociologists or field workers, suppose they are studying palliative care in a given state. Kerala is the first state to experiment with this and is running a successful palliative care program. Now, when you meet the patients or you meet the participants who are on palliative care, you will get statements like, it just helps to meet the doctor. Seeing doctor is good for medicines. Doctor never complains about shortage of medicine. He knows what medicine is to be given and when. We meet the doctor every month. I am told that I cannot be treated, but I need not suffer. From these statements, I develop a theme, improving quality of life. That palliative care is for those patients whose life cannot be extended, who are anyway going to die, and their life is short. Nothing can be done to treat them, but by giving opiates, by giving treatment and certain other facilities, the quality of life can be improved. From second order themes, emergent mechanisms are sufficient provision for opioids, because opioids are so crucial to palliative care that state or NGOs which are running palliative care programs must ensure that every time there is sufficient provision for opioids. They have a kidney problem, a they have a stroke, they have fourth stage cancer. We know that now nothing can be done to treat them, that this cancer cannot be treated, at least for ordinary people. There is no hope that this can be treated. But their pain, suffering, their anxieties, etc., can be reduced to a great extent. So we begin with their narratives, go develop first order thing, or you can call the narratives themselves as first order concepts. They are respondent codes. Develop second order themes and emergent mechanisms and identify aggregate dimensions. For example, from the narratives I have here, the first order concepts, my aggregate dimensions are opioids are central to palliative care, involving family members and their needs in care, trust in state, and artificial intelligence. By uh, with the help of artificial intelligence, it is possible to use computers and mobile phone and their interaction uh, to to maintain two-way communication between facility and the patients and their family members. Family members, they have to be held by family members. They cannot even go. Sometimes most of the patients are such that they cannot even go to a doctor on their own. Then they need to be taken to doctor by a family member. So that like this. So we start with narratives, and Gioia calls them the first order concept. You can call them first order concept. I think qualitative researchers can take that liberty. You can call them first order concept or just respondents quotes. And then more abstract conceptualization, then more abstract conceptualization, and then you identify the aggregate dimensions. The main difference between Gioia methodology and grounded theory approach is that once aggregate dimensions are identified, there is no going back to the field. So analysis begins with narratives and ends at theorization of the aggregate dimension. What is the role of theory in Gioia methodology? Building novel theoretical insights. It focuses on how this methodology supports the generation of new theories grounded in empirical data. And emphasis on researchers' interpretation. Emphasizes this Gioia methodology certainly emphasizes the researcher's active role in making sense of data while maintaining reflexivity and transparency. Reflexivity means awareness of your own biases which develop from a specific background from which you come. And transparency, accept them, document them, accept them. They should be transparent. I should not hide that I am writing a theoretical paper based on my empirical data from a man's perspective, or from a Dalit perspective, or from a woman's perspective, or from a migrant's perspective, or from bureaucracy's perspective, and so on. Two researchers may have differing understanding of second order concept. Yes, obviously. Now let us compare a little bit the two approaches. Grounded theory, what is grounded theory epistemology, and what is Gioia methodology epistemology. Grounded theory combines interpretivist epistemology. There is no reality. Reality is interpretable. How it is interpreted. Interpretation is reality. There is no absolute reality. With rigor, valuing participants' perspectives for theory development. Rigor is important. In grounded theory, rigor is important. Because you just do not go from data to theory. From theory, new questions may arise in your mind, and you go back to data, to the field. In Gioia methodology epistemology, you find that Gioia methodology emphasizes an inductive approach where knowledge is constructed from data without preconceived hypotheses to develop new theoretical insights from the informant's experience while maintaining a clear connection between the informant's experience and the concepts. Uh, in applications, as I said, that grounded theory has been more popular in psychology, sociology, anthropology, and in areas like leadership, health, healing, trauma, rehabilitation, elderly and palliative care, mental health, and organization behavior. Some people are using this in organization behavior. Gioia methodology is used primarily by organization research, marketing, and other areas of management, but it has great potential for other social scientists. Like I try to illustrate application of Gioia methodology with help of certain narratives obtained from a study of palliative care. I and a PhD student of mine studied palliative care in Kerala, and uh, we interviewed uh, multiple stakeholders. We interviewed the participants or the patients. We interviewed providers of health facilities, NGOs, state officials. We also interviewed those who generated funds for various voluntary activities in this field of palliative care, uh, and many other types of people. So, on the basis of those data, some interesting findings can be developed. This is a grounded theory. But uh, again, to repeat, in grounded theory, we go back to data. So the ideas which are generated on the basis of this, on the basis of your analysis of data or analysis of narratives, you develop new themes, and you feel that yes, these questions remain unanswered, or these questions were ignored, or they just did not come to my mind when I was collecting data from patients uh, uh, or other stakeholders, from doctors, from nurses, from bureaucracy, from NGOs or community organization or communication workers or computer workers, and these are multiple stakeholders. So, or maybe in the process we identify new stakeholders from whom data should be collected. So we go back. But in Gioia methodology, there is no going back. We collect the data, as I showed, by applying Gioia methodology to our data on palliative care, and we just move towards identifying various dimensions of palliative care, which are crucial to providing facilities and management of palliative care program. It's not as simple as uh, treating them for something, some specific thing, and it involves taking care of family members, their needs, patients' aspirations. Maybe somebody is waiting for daughter's marriage to be arranged. Somebody needs money to construct a small house for his sons and daughters, or maybe somebody has some other worry. Somebody has to pay some debt and needs to be supported financially so that he can die peacefully. There are different aspects, or you can you can also uh, see that there was a place for AI, artificial intelligence, because interaction between computer facilities at the centers, at the facilities, and mobile phones of caregivers uh, is involved. Now, comparing purpose and focus. Grounded theory research aims to generate new theories grounded in empirical data from social processes or experiences of researchers. Gioia methodology seeks to develop clear data-driven insights about organizational phenomena through participants' narratives. What is the role of researcher in them? In grounded theory, researcher acts as a data collector and analyst, striving for objectivity while allowing theory to emerge naturally from the data. And this is attained by uh, by constant interaction between field and theorizing or concept, going back to field, generating new concept, going back to field, generating new concept, meeting new people, changing your stakeholders whom you interview, uh, watching different types of situations, observing things, participant observation, non-participant observation. A mix of techniques can be used, and a mix of data can also be used. You can also include quantitative data if available on your problem, from large surveys, medium surveys, national, subnational surveys, or surveys conducted by individual researchers from universities. In Gioia methodology, researchers engage actively with participants, balancing interpretation and faithful representation of data. So here there are data from participants and there are interpretations. And in trying to interpret the data from participants, you are you try to achieve a kind of faithfulness by uh, by maybe group activities, triangulation, thinking again and again, verifying with experts, presenting papers in seminars, conferences, workshops, refining your categories, or using existing literature. Literature also helps partly in interpreting the narratives obtained from the researchers, from the participants. Sorry, not from researchers, but from the participants. Now, data collection techniques, grounded theory involves gathering qualitative data through interviews and observations to build theory from the ground up. Quantitative data may also be incorporated. Gioia methodology focuses on collecting rich first-person narratives, interviews, your qualitative interviews, unstructured interviews, and organizational data, contextual data, size of organization, major activities, hierarchy, leadership, interaction with laws, and so on, to capture participants' perspectives. Data analysis procedure, coding in grounded theory, open coding, axial coding, selective coding, aims at systematic coding of data into categories to identify patterns among them and develop emerging concepts on the basis of them. Coding in Gioia methodology shows how a structured approach to coding by identifying first order concepts, narratives are first order concepts, second order concepts or themes, and finally the aggregate dimension. Theory development. Inductive theory building in grounded theory develops new theories through an iterative process grounded in the continuous comparison of data. And in Gioia methodology, there is a conceptual model building. It creates visual conceptual models that link empirical data to theoretical constructs clearly and logically. It's like creating dendrograms. I'm again using a term from cluster analysis. It shows how theoretical constructs are developed from narratives. One way movement from data to aggregate dimensions. Presentation of findings in grounded theory. Grounded theory presents a narrative that integrates categories and explains the core process of phenomenon discovered. Gioia methodology utilizes diagrams and data structure visuals to demonstrate the relationship between themes and concepts. Now the conclusion. In concluding part, I can say that grounded theory approach is used to develop new theories from the field, spending a long time with participants who are sequentially identified on the basis of continuously evolving theoretical understanding. And Gioia methodology is used to understand or corroborate various dimensions of a theoretical problem based on face-to-face interviews, clearly showing a logical connection between responses and dimensions in a diagrammatic or matrix form. It may also benefit from existing theories to arrive at successive concepts. I'm sorry that on the left-hand side, one diagram has not clearly come, which was to explain the grounded theory. But this on the right-hand side of the slide, Gioia methodology diagram has come out clearly. It shows how from first order concepts to aggregate dimensions we go sequentially and logically and in a transparent manner, justifying every time how a concept has been developed from concept developed at the earlier stage. So there are several differences between them. Grounded theory approach accepts all kinds of data. It need not be based only on face-to-face interviews. All data are data, as I said in the beginning. And another, but in Gioia methodology, the data source is the interviewing of participants by the researcher. Unstructured interviews or narratives, their stories, their versions of reality, their understanding, their worldview, their beliefs, from which we move gradually towards identifying aggregate dimensions logically and using an interpretive approach. Now, obviously, because both of them use qualitative methodology, or they are based on qualitative understanding or epistemology, so there are certain things which are common to both. This means both merits and demerits. In both, there is an attempt to see the world from participants' perspective, which also implies that there is a plurality of worldviews, that all your participants do not view the reality. What is reality? Reality may be, say, health schemes, sanitation programs, leadership, or political understanding of different people, understanding of democracy, understanding of corruption. These are the issues you want to study. Poverty, sustainable development. What is sustainable development from the perspective of some participants may be very different from the understanding of sustainable development by other participants. So there is a plurality of worldviews, and both of them, grounded theory approach as well as Gioia methodology, accept. The process of moving from data to theory remains subjective. We call them codes, and we try to be as objective as possible to develop higher order codes from lower order codes. But after all, the process remains subjective. It's interpretive and reflexive. It reflects not only the situation, or it explains not only the problem, but it also reflects the biases, belief systems, values, and the understanding, subjective understanding of the researcher. Uh, Data collection from interview session, discussion with focus group, case studies and ethnography, surveys, experiments, observations, and content analysis. This first set of data is the data that we use in qualitative research, and it applies to both grounded theory as well as Gioia methodology. And data collection in quantitative methodology involves surveys, conducting experiments, observations, and content analysis of existing material. There are lots of computer packages uh, like data network analysis, which content analyze objectively uh, the media material, or you can also use more advanced machine learning techniques to analyze existing data. Thanks. So we stop here. I'm sure that you have some questions and you can always write to me. I will be very happy to answer your questions. Certainly, everything said in this presentation is not original. I have taken them from diverse sources, and just my purpose was uh, to um, to tell you a clear distinction. First of all, the what analyzing qualitative data means for those who are using grounded theory approach or Gioia methodology, and what are the significant differences between them, and what are the merits and demerits. So, friends, I hope that this video is helpful to you if you are using qualitative methods. And we stop here.